All right, hello, good evening. We just put session 16 in the bag. Hmm, crash. Over here at Rethink Gaming, Monday night. Curse the Crimson Throne. Let's go through it. First, shout out to Lazy Ferret Maps. You can go over to ko-fi.com, Lazy Ferret Maps, and contribute if you'd like for the wonderful map that was presented in tonight's adventure. It's a cut above the map that came in the original book and served our purpose as well. I did overlay two of his maps together and put a portal in for Fantasy Grounds. And if anybody wants to know more about how that works, just let me know. Happy to demonstrate that at some point. But that way they were able to move in and out of the crawl space, which is technically on a different adjacent map, but that all worked well. Yeah, shout out. Thanks for the map. Happy to showcase it. Let's see. I had to create the two clerics of Abadar as discussed last time. We were talking about the lack of any clerics or any pre-rolled characters that had the ability to turn undead, which, by the way, did not wind up getting used. And I'll talk about that in a minute. I have a tool that I use. We call it our Peasants and Pestilence generator. It's a Google spreadsheet, and it can dynamically generate personalities. So I used it for these two impromptu NPCs. Sister Marias was cruel, impractical, but flexible. So she has terrible suggestions that put people in harm's way, but isn't necessarily convicted to them. She's good for it if you guys are good for it, or if you have a better idea, we could do that. So that's basically, she suggested that they burn down the building. Um, and these guys are basically fakes, right? They have the abilities requested, but they're not seasoned vampire hunters because there's no need for such in this town, as far as I know, unless I missed something in the background of this town. So that they're barely competent, and I had hoped, I'd expected for them to get clobbered, and one of them did. But yeah, so anyway, Brother Corbus was unrestrained, reluctant, but arrogant. So I think I was able to play those traits as well. Jerry, one of the players, commented, these NPCs have egos. That's good, right? It's exactly what we had to do. Also, I felt like this particular chapter was pretty messy. Um, and I'm trying to hook things back together. So between this event and the one that's upcoming, we're going to do the masquerade next week. Kind of starting to thread things together. Something is going on in the city, and I hope they noticed this particular one. But it's okay if they didn't, because it doesn't come up again until later. So I can just call back to it when it comes up again later. This hook is a little weak, and it's intentionally sort of foreshadowing almost, but it's a little heavy for foreshadowing. I don't know. It's hard to explain, but that's the general idea. So we'll put that in there. There's notes like a sidebar, and I was able to use all that. And I got a little feedback in the game during the game that the idea of an arch banker is pretty cool. That's totally Paizo's. Can't take credit for that. So mostly the NPCs and items were 1-for-1 swaps. So boots, striding, springing, vampire spawns, all that stuff. I had stats for all that already. The only cleric in 5e and all the stats that I have, and I have all of those stuff unlocked on D&D Beyond, that can turn undead is Erky Timbers. He's found in the Sunless Citadel from the Tales from the Yawning Portal anthology adventure. It's the only one in the entire game that can do it. Weird. But he's basically just an acolyte who's a gnome who can channel divinity. So I took his channel divinity and I applied it to the normal acolytes. I upgraded them to breastplates, taking their AC up to 14. I doubled their hit points from 9 to 18. And also in my little library, I have a list of all of the dice notations that WotC's ever used, ignoring the pluses. So 48 is how they typically would mark out 18. Just trivia there, right? I also put in silvered crossbows. Fun fact, a little bit of trivia. Silver doesn't work against vampires any better than it does against anybody else. So they would have discovered that had the combat gotten to that point. It didn't. They wound up trapping the vampires in the building and burning it down, as suggested, right? So anyway, that was my mechanical and prep work that went into tonight's adventure. So I had a new map, which again was taken from that gentleman whom I linked everybody to. It'll be in the description of the video as well. Um, and I modified it only slightly by layering two maps on top of each other and fantasy grounds for the line of sight and the lighting and so forth. But I had to ready that. I used portals from the portals mod that you can get for fantasy grounds to access the crawl space. Pretty straightforward there. It was a little sluggish. Probably this map is pretty big. So I try to keep my online files below a meg just so they are very, very transactional and quick. This one's like 2.8 meg, and that was after I had done some things to reduce the quality. So I probably could have reduced the number of colors used as well to get that file size down even farther, but it was okay. I mean, it worked. I modified the treasure. So they had like a bunch of the treasure under the vampires, like in their boxes, and it's just kind of a very Paizo 3E thing to do, where it's like, oh, monsters have treasure, monsters have treasure. I didn't care for any of that. And all the treasure was relatively thematic to this former rogue who was running this toy shop that they had just vandalized. So I thought, well, I'll just cram all of it in the safe deposit box. I want to direct them toward the safe deposit box anyway. That all worked. That all went exactly to plan. And they wound up getting all of it as the plan that they ran through tonight. They probably wouldn't have. They would have, burned a building on top of it. And the clerics, the two, I gave them personalities, I gave them names, I gave them custom icons. So I made a little encounter to store that, so I could just sort of drag and drop that into the combat tracker and pull that up. So anyway, I expected the social encounter with the clerics, or I wanted to play up their personalities a little bit. That was somewhat mixed in with the travel, but that's fine. I expected the vampire hunt. There wasn't a lot of that. Because I think they got the sense that they were outmatched and dealt with it relatively accordingly that way. But as it was, not a lot of hunt, more like a little bit of light investigation. Then I was trying to definitely indicate that these vampires are from out of town. I don't know if that landed or if they just thought it was blah, blah, blah because they're vampires, right? Both, I guess, but that's pretty much as written. Then the key for the vault, as mentioned, that worked. And tonight we are leveling to 6, or before we play again. I'm going to level them up right away. Right after the masquerade, we're going to 7. And then after the final encounter in the chapter, they're going to 8. Then it's on to chapter 3. This one's in the books. It's just quick, right? But these encounters are wafer thin. It's a whole lot of stuff for the dungeon master to read and not nearly as much for the party to do. I get the sense that maybe you're supposed to pad this chapter out, but there's no material in which to do that with, or very little that I can see. Now, we've done a lot, right? So it started with the trip out of town and then the sinking and the ship that they didn't investigate. And they talked their way through a lot of encounters as well. So maybe it went quicker than it would have otherwise. Who knows? But we're about to move to chapter 3, and it's ahead of schedule as far as I'm concerned. I mean, we've got a huge major encounter for a masquerade next, and then a probably dungeon crawl. I mean, they might try to solve it with a social encounter, and I've got a bard, silver-tongued bard over there rolling 30s for persuasion. So I'll spend some time thinking about whether I want to short circuit that or not. I'm the dungeon master. I control the cosmos and everything in it, right? I could engineer situations where that's not going to work. I don't know if I'm going to. I might, but I don't know. We'll see. So yeah, that's what's coming down the line. And then they actually burned down the building. I presented that as a bad suggestion, as what not to do. And the personality that generated that suggestion was created from a spreadsheet that spits out 3 random personality traits from a series of 5 lists. Not what I expected. This is, cue the "Are we the baddies" meme, because maybe we are. But yeah, That's fine. That's what it is. It's there's a plague going on. Having left the vampires unchecked would have been worse. So yeah, that's it. That's it for the game. So yep, chapter 2 coming to a quick close here. 3 weeks tops, and we're going to be moving on to chapter 3. As always, questions, comments, etc., put them in the thing below. Make sure you're having fun playing D&D. If we at Rethink Gaming can help you in any way, please let us do that. There's a Discord link. You can subscribe, you can like, you can comment, you can share, all of that wonderful stuff. You can come and argue with me online on Facebook or other places. Always happy to do it. Never means anything personal to me. I'm happy to go and take up a fight. You want to hire an argumentative guy or something? I don't know. But anyway, for the few loyal viewers that we have for this segment, appreciate you. Let me know if there's any feedback or anything else you'd like to see, and otherwise, stay buckled up because we're moving on. We're keeping going. You know what I mean. Good night, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.